So, well,
right? I don't know.
thanks for figuring it out, Melissa. I appreciate it. So, uh, we
Yeah, you're welcome.
we met through the Reopen Minnesota group,
Yes.
and you are full time worker plus a small business owner, if I understood you correctly.
Actually, I a year ago left my full-time job and went into my store full-time.
Okay.
So my other job is just part-time at the moment.
Ah,
And actually, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off here while I'm in my store and it's open because the little boy that I care for is extremely immunocompromised. And for his safety, I made a decision with mom and dad the other day that I'll probably take a couple of weeks off until we see how this is going with the store being open.
so tell me a little bit about your store. Where are you? First of all, where you guys live? Where are you located? Um, what do you do?
So we live in Long Prairie, Minnesota, which is like the center of Minnesota pretty much. Stock Center is about 20 miles north of us, south of us. Oh my goodness, south of us. So, and Stock Center is literally about the center of Minnesota. So we live 20 miles roughly north of that.
Okay.
Um, I own a women's clothing boutique in St. Joseph, Minnesota. And right before this mess hit, we were in the process of opening a second location in Sauk Center. So that one's kind of at a standstill at the moment. But we've been in this like boutique game, this retail game for almost 9 years.
So you've owned this one shop for going on 9 years.
Well, we started out in 2011
Okay.
as a traveling boutique, and eventually it took up our whole basement. And so we started looking for a location in our hometown of Long Prairie and found one
Okay.
and opened that store in December of 2012. And then in 2015, this other opportunity in St. Joe came along. And then in 2017, we were going through some personal things, decided to focus on one store and in the town that was growing and was small business friendly. So we closed our Long Prairie location, kept our St. Joe location. And then in at the end of November of last year is when our Sauk Center location became available.
So
So we've actually had a brick and mortar since 2012, one or two at a time.
so you are you're personally invested in this. This isn't just this. It's not like it's a hobby. This is life.
No, this is not a hobby. I have skin in the game.
Okay. So because I don't know if everybody understands that, because there are a lot of small business owners out there that actually also either work another full-time job or a part-time job like you do, and in your case, it's care provider. It sounds like for a young child. Um,
Yeah, he's not a child anymore. I've been with this family for 11 years. And I was full time up until July of last year, and my stores were a hobby. And then it came to a point where we needed to make a decision. Was it going to continue to be an expensive hobby or was it going to be my job? So in July of last year, I went into the store full time. So because I knew it's what I wanted to do, I needed to get out of the home care business. Don't get me wrong, I work for an amazing family, but it isn't what I wanted to continue to do anymore. I still work for them very part time and help them when I can. But I really love the boutique world and the retail world. And I have for me, I mean, I have even way back in my college days.
so um, you were a care provider. Was that a trade that you had kind of? I mean, we've already talked about our age, and I know we're not supposed to do that. um, was that something as a care provider that you had always done as you were? I assume you have family, so is that something you
Yes.
done as your kids were young, or is that something that you came to later?
Um, for a long time I worked retail. When my oldest two were really young, I bartended part time, but I was actually the assistant manager um, at a retail store in our mall in St. Cloud. And I loved that. Actually, it was American Eagle. I was the assistant manager there. When I lived in the cities in college, I was the assistant manager at Stride Right, and also at one point the assistant manager at ProX in the mall in Rosedale Center. So I've always been in retail, or I've bartended or waitress. That was kind of my what I grew up doing and into my 20s. And I've always loved sales. I love, home-based businesses. I've done many. Um, I got into home care in I started out as a CNA in a nursing home for many, many years. And then I traveled as a CNA. So I traveled around Minnesota to different nursing homes when they're understaffed. I did that for a few years. And then I got into home care in 2009, and that's where I've been since. And then we started the boutique business in 2011. And then that just grew from, you know, doing events and traveling all over Minnesota and North Dakota and South Dakota to one store, then two stores, now back to one, then back to one, and now back to one and a half at this point. One and a half, because Sock Center is kind of on hold at the
So,
moment.
what's the name of your boutique for one? Let's get that out there.
Baby Girls. So it's BABYGIRLZ. And it's because my husband calls me Baby Girl. So it's not little kids' clothes, it's women's. But yeah, that's how we got the name.
Thank you for throwing that in there, because there's an eclectic group of people out there that might take that the wrong way. So,
Yep.
there's you're in a kind of a unique position of all the people that I've been talking to, because you are versed in healthcare to some degree, having been a CNA in a nursing home, and now also having done home health care or home aid for someone who's immunocompromised. So you aren't denying the validity of COVID-19 and that it does have a detrimental effect on some people on a certain segment of our society.
No, I'm not denying that at all. I also went to school for nursing. I just didn't graduate, but I went through all my clinicals and all of that and did very well. I was basically a straight A student, um, even with some of the hardest teachers. I just, from the very beginning of this, I did tell my husband that I thought a full on lockdown for the entire state of Minnesota was not the way to go, because it doesn't all look the same. And I was, like most people, most concerned about our most vulnerable, which is, of course, our elderly, those in our care facilities, those in group homes, and those who, are still in their homes being, cared for one-on-one in our, home care communities. And so from the beginning, I mean, that was my main concern. Um, but no, I'm not denying that this virus is very scary and very dangerous and can be deadly. I'm not denying that. I just, from the beginning, I felt like we needed to gain some immunity to it. And that was a better way for us. This is just my personal opinion, not a medical opinion, but just my personal opinion. We needed to actually gain some immunity because I felt like that would be a better way to protect those that were most vulnerable. That was just what I thought from the very beginning of all this.
So the reason that I asked that question is because this isn't a selfishness issue for you. And that was one of the
No,
reasons why I wanted to talk to you. The brief amount of interaction we had the other night told me quite a bit. It's not just, gosh darn it, I've invested in this business and now I'm losing out on money and I can't afford to put a new hot tub in and take my trip down to Aruba.
right.
That's not it at all. You're looking at it
No,
from a perspective of people who are genuinely at risk of injury on a medical front, but you're also invested in the fact that you personally and other people that you know, especially when you own a small business, you know a lot of other small business owners. Um, it,
I several, and through this, I've gotten to know, since my video kind of went viral, I have met many, many, many more business owners, um, and have been recently invited to meetings with them. I was on a Zoom call tonight with some people who are in our state government, along with other business owners. Um, you know, I'm just trying to speak out for them
And
if I can.
and would you would you say, from your perspective, as we're looking at numbers, we're seeing people passing away, unfortunately, in care centers, and that seems to be the area that's getting the hardest hit in the state of Minnesota. And I don't care if it's one person who dies of COVID, or if it's, and when I say I don't care, let me finish. when the number of people who die is not the issue, because every death is tragic for the family member and friends of the people that
Yes,
pass away. But we were
very much
told,
so.
we were told, small business owners were told, look, this is for the greater good. We're gonna we're doing this to protect you and protect everybody else. And and unfortunately, by the grace of God, we haven't seen numbers like even places that have instituted massive lockdowns uh, have seen. So we have massive shutdown in the state of Minnesota. Business owners are being affected, and we're still not seeing the numbers that places that are, Michigan's not much different than the state of Minnesota, and they're seeing massive shutdowns, and they're still seeing a massive amount of medical injury and death. Um,
Right.
do you think, and that was a very long-winded way of me to ask this question, so do you think that the long-term economic impact of this shutdown is going to be far more detrimental to the state and to individuals than COVID-19 could ever be?
Yes. Um, I mean,
If you need to qualify that,
here's the
yes, that's
thing.
fine.
You know, that sounds terrible because, like you said, every life lost is absolutely tragic. But we are seeing, the not only the socioeconomic damage, but the emotional and, um, mental toll this is taking on not just business owners, but the people that work for them as well.
Right.
So, if, for instance, I have a friend in the bar and restaurant industry who had a team meeting with their staff today, and one of their staff members is like terrified they're going to lose their place to live. They have at points not had food because they didn't qualify for unemployment. Um, I mean, at one point, this business owner who has no income coming in is helping them source um, formula for their baby because they don't have any money. They're living with another family member whose hours have just been cut. I mean, it's just, and here's the other side of this, and this is the part that we all seem to, well, business owners don't, but I think a lot of people don't understand, is this doesn't just affect me. So when I am closed, I'm not taking orders from my wholesalers. So my wholesalers are being affected because that's their income, right? So they're not having an income either because we're closed. So we're not taking orders. We're pushing orders out to other months. Um, my landlord is not getting his rent. My utility company is not getting their bill paid. And those bills just continue to pile up for everybody. Like the wholesaler who's not getting paid, their bills are piling up. The landlord who doesn't have income coming in because their tenants aren't paying rent, their bills are paying up, piling up. They have bills too. They have property taxes, they have repair bills and things like that for their places of businesses, their commercial spaces. If you're renting, I mean, there's so much more far reaching than just this one person. And I think that's the part that everyone seems to forget, is as business owners, we are responsible for other people. Like if we have employees, we have to look out for them as well. We don't just care about ourselves. It's their well-being and their financial situation as well that we're, in charge of. And, we have to worry about our landlords and their financial situations and all the things. And so, I mean, like we're seeing in the food industry right now, right? I mean, with these plants shut down, Prices are going up. Farmers are not seeing that. I mean, everybody across this entire supply chain is being hurt. And whether you're in the retail industry or you're in the bar and restaurant industry, you're in the salon industry, I mean, it's the same way across the board. And I don't quite think people get that this isn't just about business owners, it's about everybody around them. This is a circle of impact that these shutdowns are having. And I mean, we need to remember these other people as well, these people that didn't maybe qualify for unemployment, business owners that didn't get PPP like myself. I mean, it's just,
Well,
that's, I mean, the economic, this is just an economic catastrophe right now for Minnesota. And if we don't get this state open back up, it is bound to get way worse before it gets better.
well, and even if you did qualify for PPP, there's a hook in that as well. Like
If there's a hook.
Yeah, it's never going to be free, you know. And I had that conversation
Nope.
with somebody else the other day, because you don't know, you know, if I don't spend this exactly the right way, they're going to come at me and want it all back. And
well, and here, okay, and with that said, so you're in the bar and restaurant industry, and you went from like Shady's, okay, the guys at Shady's, they employ roughly 168 people. Well, clearly they're not having that many employed right now, as they're only doing takeout, right? So now you've got this PPP that they've had to get for their different facilities, and they have, you know, 5 or 6 different bars and restaurants, but that money has to be paid back in an 8-week time. Well, you're not even bringing your people back. So if you don't bring your people back and use that PPP for paying them, you're paying that back. So it's essentially a loan. It's not a grant. It's not free money. You're paying that back. And so that's, like you said, there's a hook. There's the hook right there.
And that $1,200 stimulus package that we were supposed to get $1,200 per person. I don't, you know, and we don't need to go into detail about you, but even if you do get that, and even if your employees get that, that $1,200 is, you know, it sounds probably ungrateful, but what's that going to do for you when you're not?
I mean, when your house payment is $1,500 or $1,700, or maybe your rent, like in the St. Cloud area, or even here in Long Prairie, I mean, rent for a house is $1,200 a month.
Rent is?
Yep. You want to rent a house in Long Prairie in the middle of Minnesota, it's about $1,200 a month. Same in Worthington and Windham, where my girlfriend lives. If you want to rent a house, even apartments up here are $1,400 a month.
I thought the Rochester area was bad.
No, it's bad up here. It's bad all over.
Wow.
But I mean, $1,200, that's 1 month's rent. And, you know, everybody's like, well, you should be getting free rent. That rent is going somewhere and probably on the back end of this. So no matter what, somebody's got to pay this, just like if you want to defer your car payment, right? It's not just free. You just don't get away with not paying your car payment. It's going on to the end of your loan or your lease or whatever you're doing with, you know what I mean?
Or when you move out.
And I don't think that's the other piece that people get about this.
Or when you move out, they're going to want that 2 months or whatever that you didn't pay.
They're going to keep, yeah, they're going to want that deposit. Mm-hmm. Lucky you, Eric.
Let's say that, how do I want to say this? Let's say that you are, we're fortunate that the governor's already started to say you can start opening back up, but last night in his speech, he said that he was also reserving the right to crank that dial back the other way, which to me was very ominous. It didn't sound like I'm watching out for you. It was like, you're going to do what I say or I'm going to put the screws to you.
That's exactly how I took it. And in my video that I posted this morning, I said that very thing. He basically said, I have this dial in my hand, and you basically, if you don't do what I like or what I want you to do, I'm going to dial it all the way back and shut it all down. I mean, that's pretty much essentially what he said. At least that's the gist of it that I got. And I told my friends, I said, you know, it's not what he did say, it's what he didn't say.
Right.
He didn't say, okay, bars and restaurants, we're going to have a plan out to you by the end of this week so you can be raring to go by the first, right? Or salons or gyms, either gym owners. I have, several gym owner friends. Um, I mean, he didn't say that. And so that also makes me really nervous for them that we are not, um, they're not looking at a June 1st date unless they just go ahead and do it anyway. And so, I mean, yeah, honestly, it was more about what he didn't say last night in that speech. I'm going to call it, because it was more like a speech. Huh. You're right, Alan. He doesn't. A lot of people think this is a law, but it's not. It's an order, and it's completely different. And I was on a call with some people in state government tonight, and I mean, it doesn't sound like this governor is really listening to anybody.
Oh, well, he is, but just not the people he should be listening to. I'm that was not very nice of me. um,
Might be true.
might be true. Um, let I'm going to ask this. It's going to be a hard question probably, and I don't want to
Okay.
I don't want to make it emotional, but maybe this is what people need to start seeing. Uh, what is it? What are the odds that you're going to be able to stay afloat if you aren't able to open back up full on, do your business the way you're used to doing it, especially now that you already started the process of opening another brick and mortar store? How long can you do this before you finally can't do it anymore?
We do have an online, but what people don't seem to understand either is when your business model is a brick and mortar, you can't just pivot your business overnight to be an online or live sale boutique. It just doesn't work, or a retail store. It's not how it works. I know it seems that simple, but it's just not.
Right.
Yeah, Jackie, you're right. It was a verbal spanking. He was like yelling at us last night, like, do it my way or else. Um, but um as far as for me, I probably would end up having to go back into the healthcare field if I wanted to keep the stores open, or if I liquidated everything today. I mean, I would still owe my rent. I still have a lease for 6 or 7 months on the new location, which isn't even open, and it's like at a standstill. And I have probably a little over a year on my space in St. Joe. And, what I said to my landlord, especially in St. Joe, I just said, hey, here's the deal. You can work with me and I'll do my very best to get you the rent every month or whatever, or make it up the next month or whatever I need to do. Cause ain't nobody going to want to open a business in this mess. So you'll be sitting on an empty space. I mean, and while you're still getting your rent, it doesn't look very nice.
Right. Right.
Um, in Stock Center, both landlords have been really good in working with me, but I understand it's a business and these are investments for them. And people just are like, oh, well, aren't you getting free rent? No, you guys, hello. I don't know what people don't understand about that. I think that's one of the dumbest questions I get. Well, aren't you getting free rent? No. And if I do right now, I'm going to have to pay it later.
Well, don't hold back. I wouldn't want you to feel the need to not speak your mind. So,
Sorry.
no, you're fine.
Anyone who knows me knows I usually speak my mind. I just, people either love me or they hate me. I don't think there's any in between.
You and I would get along very well. I think we're going to have a great friendship. So all around, this is not, well, so here I'll ask this then, since we're in the process of interviewing and discussing. Prior to all of this, would you have considered yourself to be incredibly politically active one way or another? Would you have joined a group like Reopen Minnesota under a different circumstance?
Probably. I very much know where I stand on all the issues. And I have been for my friends who are watching, I have spoken out for a long time against like child protection. So I'm
You're fine.
So we've been through a lot in the court system, the family court system. I'm very vocal about things when I definitely feel like they're in the wrong, and the way things are done is wrong. I believe I stand up for what I believe in. We'll just say that. Um, I, you know, I don't go around advertising who I voted for just because of the hatred that I've experienced. I mean, I had family members who absolutely won't talk. I have a sister that won't even be friends with me on Facebook anymore, because we disagree politically. I have a son that argues with me constantly because of our political differences. I will say that I was never as politically or involved politically until uh, this last campaign. I mean, I've always voted one way, and I've always, respected the office of the presidency, even if I didn't like who held the office. But I um, have never paid near as much attention as to the corruption and just what's actually happening in our country and the terrifying way I feel our country is headed as I have these last few years.
Do you consider the last, let's just call it 2 months, the last 2 months has been as being a very, very eye-opening experience for you?
Um, yes. I mean, first of all, this is the okay. I closed my store like everybody else did with the idea that we were doing this for our communities, our staff, our families, right? And then after a few weeks, you start to kind of question a few things. At least if you think for yourself and you're really paying attention, um, you realize that not everything is adding up. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know about the last 2 months. I mean, it's been hard. I don't know. It's just this whole thing is nuts.
Right. So, so some of your frustration is, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, some of your frustration is really, um, it's obviously there's a personal aspect to it. Um, there's also a reality in that it's economic. You care about your down chain, your supply chain. You care about them. You care about
I do.
you care about the people around you. You you have do you just work the boutique by yourself, or do you have staff? I can't remember what you said.
I don't really have staff. I have a couple. So my daughter helps me sometimes. She's now 15. My mom does work for me a little bit. My mom is 80, so I've pretty much kept her out of the store since like the beginning of March, which by the way, she was mad at me about. But as a business owner, I realized I had to
Right.
do the right thing. Um, but primarily it has been me. Now, once we get the other store
You're
open,
going to have
probably
somebody else.
it will involve hiring some other staff. And I have had staff that have worked for me in the past. We have had some part-time college girls. When I was not in the boutique, of course, we had pretty much full-time staff in the store, except for a few days a week when I was there. So, but now it's primarily me,
So,
and it will be me until we get the other store open.
right. And so this is a compassion issue for you because it, I would imagine, where you're at, you're looking around and you're seeing big box stores, Target, Walmart, other places like that are open for doing business. And if you watch Walmart, you can't try clothes on. You have to go in there and buy them. And they just now started taking returns again. So if you bought
Right.
something and you took it home and it didn't fit, tough luck, Chuck. You're you're out of luck until we start taking
Right.
clothes back. So you're looking at that, and I would imagine if I understand your mentality, you're kind of saying to yourself, um, why am I not safe to run a business when hundreds of people literally can crowd into a Target supercenter or into Walmart supercenter and buy clothes and buy groceries and buy everything under the sun, but I can't have one person in my store from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 1:30 in the afternoon, and it just be the two of us. Somehow that's not safe. Has that been something that's gone through your mind?
It has. I mean, obviously, my store is about 1,000 square feet in St. Joe. It's very easy. I mean, even when I did open last week and had tremendous support, people were very mindful of each other. We're wiping everything down. Obviously, I feel it's much safer, much cleaner than going into a big box store. But I have to be honest, my friends who know me know I am absolutely pro small business. Like, and I have been. I'm very, very vocal about. And one of the things that really bothers me is those who brag about shopping on Amazon all the time. I haven't seen Jeff Bezos do a flippin' thing in the middle of this mess. Haven't seen him post about donating a dime to anybody. I don't see what he's really doing for his employees. You know, he makes, at the last time I looked at his numbers, you know, he makes about $30,000 every 9 seconds. That's crazy to me. And so I've always been very pro small business. Do we buy everything at small businesses? No. Do I buy a lot of what I can get at small or locally owned businesses? Yes. And and through this, we've become even more intentional about where we're shopping. We started going more to the local grocery stores in the area, some of the local meat markets more. Um, you know, I learned about a couple of toy stores that I plan to go shop at. You know, like for Christmas for my grandson. So rather than, you know, going to Walmart or going to Target. And so I hope that people from here on out will get really intentional with their money. I've always been, like I said, I've always been pro small business, and I've never really been a big retail box store shopper. And here's the thing I always tell people, you know, you can shop small and you don't necessarily have to shop local. There's lots of boutiques in this country that are you know, women and men led even, that you could shop with. You know, there's a lot of places you can shop besides big box stores. And even if you're going to shop, like say with Victoria's Secret or the Buckle, or let's just throw out one of those, American Eagle, I always encourage people to actually go into the physical location in their communities, because it supports local jobs in their community. They pay taxes in their communities and things like that. And, you know, when you shop online, it doesn't do that. I mean, even when you know, go into the bookstore, you know, we have a Barnes and Noble in St. Cloud, go in there and buy a book. Don't order it online. Go into the store and buy it, because you're paying for that college girl, you know, that needs a weekend job. Victoria's Secret, a lot of those girls are college and high school, you know, Buckle too. Like, you're providing jobs in your communities, even if you're shopping at a big box store, if you shop local, period.
Right.
So I'm very passionate about shopping local and shopping small whenever you can. I mean, I have been for many years. I mean, especially since we've opened a business.
Well, I really appreciate you hearing you say that. And so one more time, tell us the name of your store.
So it's Baby Girls with a Z boutique.
Baby Girl
And
Boutique, and that is in what town?
our current open location is in St. Joseph, Minnesota, which is in, you know, near St. Cloud. We're in Stearns County there.
Okay.
And then our second location will be in Sauk Center, which is also in Stearns County, but about 20 miles north or south, excuse me, of my current hometown. So, yeah.
And if you had if you had one thing to say civilly to the governor right now, it would be you gotta hold your breath on that one. You don't know if you can.
No, I could say it civilly.
One thing that you could say civilly to the governor right now about, because technically you can open up. So
Monday I can.
technically you can. But I hear more than just you in your comments. You're worried about a lot of people. So that what one thing would you say to our to the honorable Governor Walz?
I guess the one thing that I would tell him is, first of all, not all Minnesota looks alike. And you need to take that into consideration when you're making these decisions. Rural Minnesota does not look like the Twin Cities. It doesn't look like Duluth. It doesn't even, I mean, out here where I am in Long Prairie or Browerville, Swanville, some of these little areas out here, Osakis, we don't even look like St. Cloud. I mean, sometimes you think we're, you know, in two different worlds from my hometown to where our store is located. I mean, it's just that much different. So I would say that, and then I would tell him that this shutdown is absolutely destroying lives. And, you know, especially our bar industry and our restaurant industry, our salons, they are held to the highest standards anyway. I absolutely have faith in these people that they can keep their customers way safer than packing into a big box store, which we've all heard, we've all seen, we've all said. And, um, and I mean, lives are being destroyed. I mean, you have bartenders that don't make very much. Yeah, right now they're on unemployment. Good for them. They're getting that extra $600, which, you know, that was a bad move. I would tell them that too. That was a bad move. But, you know, now they don't want to come back to work. But I mean, some of them do. I shouldn't say not
Right.
all of them because that's not fair.
Trust me, your audience and my audience will understand.
Yeah, I mean, you get it. So, but there are those people. My girlfriend's dealing with that a little bit in her store right now. But this isn't just about me. I mean, yeah, retail, I have online. What do salons have? These ladies and these men, they have been out of work for, what are we going on? I mean, we're going on 50 some days, 55 days, I think we're at. I don't even know. And he's not giving any definitive date. I would ask him to give a date, give a definitive date, lay down the guidelines, get the guidelines out to these owners, and trust them to do what's right. He has to have a little bit of faith in the state of Minnesota and in his people. And right now he is not showing that at all. He has control and it looks like he wants to keep it, but he needs to trust us because we can keep people safe. And we aren't selfish. We aren't hateful. We aren't murderers. We truly care about our neighbors or we wouldn't have shut down in the first place. But come on already. We have got to get this dial turned back up and get this state open if we're going to save what's left of any kind of economy in this next year. But I mean, that's really what I would say to him is to have a little faith in the people that live here and that not all of Minnesota looks the same. And you need to take that into consideration when you're making these decisions. You can't just do a blanket draconian measure that covers an entire state that doesn't look the same.
Right. Absolutely. So everybody, you heard her. She has a online presence. She has a brick and mortar store. I don't look good in women's clothing, so I won't be buying for myself, but I would imagine your website is the same name as the business.
Yep, Shop Baby Girls.
Okay.
It's pretty much Shop Baby Girls across all of our social media platforms, including our website. It's, you know what, honestly, Baby Girls, because of the way it's spelled, if you type it in, you'll find it right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easy to find. But I mean, you know, this, for whatever reason, I've ended up with this voice, if you will, on Facebook and in the paper. And like I said, I was invited to be on a phone call tonight and there was a senator on there. I mean, who thought I would ever be on a phone call where a senator was on there? Not me. This isn't just about me. This is about all of the owners, their families, their staff and their families that are suffering right now. With no end in sight. There has to be some light at the end of the tunnel. You've got to give these people some hope right now. He's just got to give some people some hope. So, because they're running out of it.
So, you know, you said something that was really telling. And that was, whoever thought I would be on a phone call with a senator. I get why you say that, because so Don, I'm not chastising you, so don't take it. But I think that's part of our problem, Melissa. We look at the elected officials as if they're some form of royalty. And so we vote these people into office, and then we walk around picking up the tails of their coats, begging for bits and pieces from them, saying, oh, please, save me, protect me, and keep me safe from everything that could do me harm. And we forget constitutionally, and so here's where I'm going to wax a little philosophical now, since I've got your audience and mine. We forget that the Constitution says, both the Constitution of the state of Minnesota and the Constitution of the United States makes it very clear that we're the masters, we're the rulers, they're the servants, and they govern by our
They're
consent,
supposed to be.
with our consent, and they have to listen to us. They can't just keep doing things because they want to do them. And so I would challenge you, the next time you have that voice, in a civil way, which you're obviously very capable of doing, and I've appreciated hearing that. Remind them who they work for. And I did that, today with Jeremy Munson, even though Jeremy is apparently on our side. I did that with him today, and I did it with another man who was running for the House of Representatives in from the district that covers Bloomington. I asked the question, constitutionally, who do you work for? Who's in charge? And he answered that question right. He got it right. But we need to remind them of that. And like your friend Ruth, you must know Ruth. Or
Yep.
We the people.
She's a sweetie. She used to go to my church. She moved now, but
so
very smart lady. Very nice lady.
It's we the people. It's us. We are in charge, and we put them there to represent our best interests. And that means all of us. Not just a certain segment of society, not just the largest number of people. So I don't care if there's 65 I don't care if it's 95% of the people are saying no, keep us shut down. That 5% that's vocal deserves to be heard and represented, and that's what's not happening. And so even the good representatives and even the good senators are doing their part, but they need to be pushing this harder. And if this stretches out much longer, not only do small business owners like you need to defy these tyrannical, draconian measures and open up and say, we're doing it our way, but also our senators and our representatives need to start filing civil and legal action like they did in Wisconsin. And we need to be willing to back them up because we put them in that position and told them we take care of them.
Well, I will tell you, the ones that were on with us tonight, the senator and the two other state people, and there were a couple lawyers too, very much were on our side. And they are, they asked a lot of questions. They want to hear the stories, especially about that, about that young gal and her family, how they're suffering right now because of this. One of them was very interested and wanted to speak with them directly, which I thought was wonderful because that's what they need to hear. My family and I, thank goodness, are actually okay. My husband is an essential worker and has a good job. So, yes, the business would have suffered and I could have maybe ended up closing, but, we would have been okay. Otherwise I could have gotten another job, whatever. But you're right. And this is what I think we have just forgotten in this country, and I think it's been very eye-opening, like you were asking earlier. The most eye-opening thing of all of this has been how easy we just laid down and did what we were told, and that no one hardly at all has been willing to buck the system and say, hey, I don't work for you. You work for me, and you're violating my constitutionally and God-given rights. Right. And I wish, honestly, more people would have had a few more guts to just stand up and say, this is not right. You are destroying lives and you're destroying livelihoods. And I hope that we'll see more businesses do that. Now, one of the fears, for those in industries like bar, restaurant, salons, is all their licenses, right? Yep. And so that's the fear. But that's also what's holding them back, is that fear. They don't want to step out because they're afraid that they'll get yanked. They'll get huge fines. And if you see some of the comments that have been directed at some of the restaurants that plan to open on May 18th out here in central Minnesota, they're horrific. I have seen absolutely the most horrible, hateful, disgusting comments I've ever seen. I even had a phone call to the store last week where she chastised me for not wearing a mask and then hung up the phone before I could even respond to her. And I thought, really? And then so law enforcement did come to my store again today. Um, they didn't shut me down. I wasn't about to comply, and I think they knew that. But of course, they had more reports that I'm not obeying the law. And so they had to come speak to me. And I just thought, I think we need to get back to teaching history in this country too, because people are absolutely clueless about how this all works.
I already,
They think these,
I already love you.
yeah.
I already love you.
I mean, they think this is a law and it's not. And it's been a unilateral decision. This hasn't even gone through the legislature. He is making unilateral decisions for everyone in this state, regardless of where they live, regardless of their background, regardless of the population density, or the, um, you know, or even, I mean, when you look at our numbers, even compared to like the states that are, border us on the one side and on the bottom, um, he's not, here's the thing, we're losing revenue right now to North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa. I mean, and we'll continue to lose that revenue if people don't start standing up and say, I have to do this for my family regardless. Because if I don't, I'm going to lose everything. And if either way, you're going to lose, you could lose everything. If you stay closed for another month, like I honestly am not expecting a June 1st opening for any of these guys. I would love to say that I trust this governor. I don't. And in my video this morning that I posted, I said, I want them to, but what I want for them to do is all get on the same page. I wish that I'd had some other retailers join me. I mean, after I did it, a few others around the state did it, but nobody in my area, nobody in a local community to me did it.
Yep.
Nobody in St. Joe even did it.
Yep.
And I wish they would have. I wish they would have stood up with me and said, "You're right. This isn't okay." And we stand with you, Melissa. And so what I'm trying to do now is say to my friends and the business owners that surround me in St. Joe is, I stand with you. If you open on the 18th, my family and I will be there to eat regardless.
Right.
And we're not leaving if the cops come. I'm not afraid of being arrested. I'm not afraid. They're not going to fine us. And even when this all went down, my husband said, well, what if they come to arrest you? I said, then let me sit in jail, because I'm going to sit there to prove my point.
Right. And that's,
I'm not afraid.
If we begin to rise up, and as I said, somewhat,
and we can do it civilly.
Absolutely.
We can do it civilly.
Absolutely. And we need to be reminding the law enforcement officers who
they work for.
Not only, well, I say this not to be cheeky, but I actually kind of hate that when people do that, because they know who they work for. But we need to remind them of their oath. Remind them of their oath. That's huge.
I haven't had to. The two officers that came to visit me absolutely knew their oath and knew what they stood for, and were very respectful and kind to me. And I showed them the same respect. The first time that they came, I complied out of respect. And then I was like, wait a second. I said I was going to do this and I can't back down. And so now I'm literally, now we're just a few days away from opening anyway. So I'm not backing down. Even though they came again today, they can come again tomorrow and Saturday. I don't care. I'll ask them. I don't have to ask them to leave. They just came and said, we made contact. See you later. Have a good day.
Yep.
Basically is what he said.
So everybody check out Melissa's store when you're in the area, or make a day trip, and find an essential reason to be traveling. Check out our website if you can't travel. And for Melissa's friends, if you're watching this, I have a Facebook page. It's called the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. It is not a radical thing. It's a throwback to the Revolution, to the days the church in the continental United States and the colonies was very vocal in resisting tyranny. And King George hated him so much, he actually called the Revolutionary War the Presbyterian War. He despised the preachers in England at the time, or not in England, excuse me, in the colonies. Well, some of them in England too, but he despised the pastors who were inspiring the people to be patriots and to be liberated from the tyranny of the king. Check out that page, but also check out the YouTube channel, because there are far more stories. It's not just business owners. It's a couple of students, some people who have had their minds changed about how they're going to handle educating their kids. Get the story out.
That's been a conversation in this house too.
Yeah, absolutely. And get the story out, because people need to know, and they're not going to pay attention to mainstream media, or mainstream media is not going to pay attention to us. It's going to be small little nobodies like me who are telling stories, and we need to get it out there. And because I agree, um, I don't think this is going to end on June 1st. Even if they lift restrictions, they've got the ability now, ladies and gentlemen, because as you said, Melissa, we just laid down. We just laid down to be safe.
We kind of did.
And
I mean, and we did it out of, we did it out of
compassion.
Our, the concern and compassion for our neighbors and the communities that we serve, as especially as small business owners, right? We did it because, oh, we don't want our mom to die. We don't want our grandma to die. We don't want, in my case, my dad has a lung disease and is on oxygen. Obviously, I don't want him to die. We obviously care about people, because we want to pay our bills and provide for our families doesn't make us selfish a-holes that just want to kill people. It's just not true. And I've been trying to just remind people that, they keep saying we're all in this together, but when you're calling me in because I'm open, we're not all in this together. You're in your own world and I'm over here trying to survive. And you're calling me into the BCA. Like, I don't just, this is the one thing that I will never understand about this. I even had a business owner attack one of my customers, another business owner in St. Joe attack one of my customers on my Facebook page the other night and went political on him, and then went political on me to the point I had actually had a banner from my Facebook page, which I can tell you, I've had a Facebook page for 9 years. We've had our business and I've never banned a person ever, ever. I mean, I've never had to do that before. And I mean, I just was like blown away at how hateful she was and mean, and automatically assumed, our political associations or our affiliations and who we voted for. And I'm like, oh my gosh, get off my page, chick. Like, that's craziness. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, I've never seen such hateful comments towards business owners. And to me, I don't know how you can say, well, I'll shop at other small businesses, but I won't shop at yours because you're breaking the law. Then you're not really for small business. You're just small business in general, if you ask me.
It's like the people that were at the rally today that were protesting the protesters and holding signs that said, go home. Let's
go home, stay safe. You're safer at home.
Just holding a sign that said, go home. And I'm just like, the irony of the fact that you're standing out here holding a sign that says, go home is.
Oh, that's funny.
Right. So one more time, everybody shop at Melissa's store, Baby Girls. Shop at Baby Girls. Check out my YouTube channel, the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, and the page. If you're a friend of Melissa's, continue to support her and get the word out. Melissa, I thank you for your time. I'm sorry for all the technological.
Oh, no. Hey, we figured it out. So that was great. And you know what? Like you said, your voice, even as small as we think it might be. I mean, I thought my voice was small when I posted that video, and look what's come of it. And, like I said, whoever thought I'd be on a call with several other business owners I've never met and a senator. And I mean, whoever thought from my little video that I posted, all this would happen, and the amazing people and the amazing things and the blessings that have come out of this. There's been a lot of good that has come out of this. And so my just opinion is, what the devil means for evil, God will use for good. And I hope that, some of us will come out of this better than we went in, and stronger than we went in. And that's all I can pray for my friends and my family.
There you go, quoting Genesis. Quoting Genesis. What kind of backwards person are you, quoting the Bible?
I know. Well, I'm a Baptist girl. I grew up in a church, going to church 4 times a week.
What kind of church did you grow up in? What kind of church?
I grew up in a Baptist church.
Oh, I'm a Reformed Baptist going to a Presbyterian church. No one knows what to do with me. And thank you for your time, and keep me posted on how the business goes.
Yeah. All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you so much. You have a great night. All right.
Bye. As always, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for being open-minded. Thanks for listening. I would ask that over here in the corner, somewhere on your screen, you hit the subscribe button. It's important, not for me, but because mainstream media, legacy media, isn't going to get the word out. They're not going to let people who don't toe the established line speak. So for the sake of liberty and for the sake of the defense of this nation, small little independent voices like mine need to be heard, especially the interviews. It's got very little to do with my commentary and a lot more to do with the interviews and the people who are affected when liberties are tread on. So once again, hit the subscribe button, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much.